So one of the downsides of perpetual war that nobody really talks about is the fact that the quality of war propaganda just goes down dramatically as you shift from trying to demonize the enemy to trying to maintain morale to trying to make the people forget there is an enemy to trying to make the people forget there is a war at all. So you go from loose lips sink ships, which, I mean, I don't know, it has a certain quality, to flatten the curve. What the hell does that even mean? When I first saw that appear, I was confused, bemused, driven to click upon it for some reason. And I saw this diagram that everybody was using and this repeating of this phrase that nobody knew the day before. And it's just very interesting to watch how that sort of thing is adopted and spreads throughout the conversation, especially when people are confined to their homes unnaturally and also in a very fragile emotional state due to having been either recently laid off or had their hours severely reduced or in some way worried about how they're going to make ends meet. In general, they're unbalanced and they're being thrown a lifeline. One thing you can do to get yourself out of this hole that you are in through no fault of your own is to repeat like a mantra, flatten the curve, social distancing. Social distancing is just alienation by another name. And I mean, I've already done a whole video about alienation, which I would recommend you watch if you want to understand what's going on right now. The name of the video is weaponizing tech to dehumanize humanity. I'll never be able to get that name right. So they're getting us primed for what comes next. I mean, when you're in constant war, you need to find new and exciting ways of getting people to give up their rights, because obviously they don't just throw them up for any old thing, especially if they do remember 2001 and how they were easily conned into giving up their rights then by, I mean, oh, this is a terrorist attack on American soil? What? Ask questions about how the Prime Minister of Israel came to know who the culprit was just hours after the act? I don't want to ask questions.
Today, our fellow citizens, our way of life, our very freedom came under attack.
I want to assure the American people that we're doing everything we can each day to confront and ultimately defeat this horrible, invisible enemy. We're at war. In a true sense, we're at war.
Thousands of lives were suddenly ended by evil, despicable acts of terror.
I'm a wartime president. This is a war. This is a war, different kind of a war than we've ever had.
America was targeted for attack because we're the brightest beacon for freedom and opportunity in the world.
Once they start saying, are you with us or are you with the virus? It's all over. So when you're trying to get the population to give up its rights, it helps to give them a frame of reference for the last time they did such a thing with such willingness. And of course, that last time would be September 11th, which they have not stopped comparing, at least since the beginning of this month, to the coronavirus epidemic. It's just been like nonstop stories that include coronavirus and 9/11 in the title, even when the two have nothing to do with each other. And I would argue that they really don't have a whole lot to do with each other, other than that the official stories of both are flagrant lies that don't bear any resemblance to the truth upon closer scrutiny. And, well, so maybe they do actually have something to do with each other. Okay, we start with the sane, the logical. Yeah, of course, they both, coronavirus and 9/11, killed the airline industries in their respective times. Okay, did they get a $60 billion bailout after 9/11? No, but, they haven't gotten one yet here either. We can always hope that Trump thinks better of, like, flagrant minting of money out of thin air to spend on an industry that's doing better. Not even 9/11 could shut down AA meetings. Coronavirus is different. That's just gratuitous, because like why would you have to reach back 20 years to find a thing that should have shut down AA meetings that didn't? You could say, why didn't Hurricane Sandy shut down, or not even Hurricane Sandy could shut down AA meetings, or not even the blizzard of insert big blizzard year here could shut down AA meetings. Reaching back to 9/11 is kind of gratuitous, and it's pretty obvious at this point that this is the narrative and that we need to be pushing it. I don't know if they actually get a memo or anything. I don't think that at this point they have to get a memo. I'm sure they all are just sort of attuned to the same psychological frequency. Coronavirus and 9/11, America's response to crisis. Well, of course, Americans can always be counted on to respond to crisis by completely losing their shit and doing the worst possible thing ever, running straight to the arms of the police state. I'm sure that's not what this article means, but it's kind of implied. Like I said, the comparison of coronavirus to 9/11 and every bad thing that comes with that. This will be their 9/11. How to help kids cope with coronavirus stay-at-home orders. Oh, isn't that sweet? They don't have to just insult our intelligence. They can insult the younger generation too. Now, really, this whole thing is disgusting. This is how to program your children so that they too can have the fear. No, that's gross. Imagining a 9/11-like response to a coronavirus epidemic. And that gets to the point here. See, you can see here that this is an earlier article than the other ones, but the other ones they had to kind of like fill it out because just saying 9/11, like why would you have a 9/11 response to a coronavirus epidemic? The two have nothing to do with each other. That's what you think, my friend. That's what you think. So this is the point here. Response to coronavirus could test limits of government powers. Well, yeah, we still have this thing called the Constitution, and while the Patriot Act, 9/11 again, kind of did away with most of that, it does still exist, and its provisions can be brought up at the most bothersome times, such as during court cases. If you actually do manage to get a lawyer to challenge your unconstitutional infinite detention, you might have some trouble explaining your way out of one or two components of the Bill of Rights that happen to directly outlaw the thing that you're doing to an American citizen at that moment. Which is why, of course, they're constantly trying to do things like the 2012 NDAA, which basically allowed for indefinite military detention of any American presumed to be associated with a terrorist group. Now, as we have seen, the FBI's list of things that it calls domestic terrorists has grown longer and longer, and while that NDAA specifically mentioned Al-Qaeda or associated groups, it's easy to see how a domestic terrorist could be said to be associated with the dreaded Al-Qaeda, which has been used as a justification for everything from, oh, Al-Qaeda ate my homework, to, oh, yeah, we needed to bomb that wedding party because somebody flashed a gang sign, Al-Qaeda gang sign. There are no Al-Qaeda gang signs, sir. Well, there are now, and that guy just flashed one, so shut up. At any rate, how do they get around the limits of government authority? They make the people beg for the police state, just like they did in 9/11. Oh, keep us safe, keep us safe. Oh, keep us safe from the terrorists. And so the WHO claims coronavirus is in some ways worse than the Spanish flu, which killed tens of millions. Is the coronavirus worse than the Spanish flu? Of course it's not, but how did the WHO get that? Well, they pulled it out of their ass, basically. They looked at Wikipedia, and Wikipedia said that the Spanish flu killed only 1.1 to 2% of those it infected. Now, of course, if you look at their map, which Off Guardian did because they're not stupid, if you look at Off Guardian here, they happen to notice that somebody snuck in there and changed the 10 to 20% fatality rate to 1 to 2%, thus making it comparable to the coronavirus epidemic, which more recent studies have shown doesn't actually even approach that 2% death rate. So it's even more benign than originally thought. But that's not getting a lot of publicity because the idea of shutting down the entire world economy for a disease that kills less than 1% of its people is 1% of its people. Oh, God. A disease that kills less than 1% of those infected. A disease that kills less than 1% of those infected, that would be really stupid, right? I mean, you'd have to be some kind of idiot, or you'd have to be like deliberately trying to tank the world economy in order to cover up the fact that the bubble was about to pop and that you didn't want to end up with egg on your face. However, what this article doesn't mention is that there were also, among the same pack of editors, were going in and changing the sort of the origin story of the Spanish flu, which didn't come from Spain. Spoiler alert, it actually came from the US. Like so many bioweapons, we just really kind of have a monopoly on the whole thing. Not quite, we have Israel. But the US, they were responsible for this one. But these editors wanted to make it look like it came from China because, we need more reasons to compare coronavirus, which also, spoiler alert, didn't come from China. But this editor who was responsible for mostly doing these changes, which were sourced from her book, about, of course, the Chinese origins of the Spanish flu. She's also written on an interesting topic: how Facebook, fake news, and friends are warping your memory. So this is a a treatise on cognitive infiltration, basically talking about how researchers who want to implant false memories in a population, they're saying like collective recall, they want to correct the misinformation that has historically taken root in a population. And you do this, according to Miss Spinney here, by sending in an agent who your target population will consider trustworthy. Now, she doesn't use the phrase cognitive infiltration here, but that's exactly what she's describing, and it's exactly the modus operandi of Wikipedia, which, as you probably know if you're watching this channel, is a hive of scum and villainy. Wretched hive of scum and villainy, I might add. And it's an entirely synthetic intelligence operation, and largely run by Israeli intelligence with help from US, UK. I'm sure there's other countries with their fingers in that pie, but primarily it's the Israel, US, UK thing. And this is basically giving away how it works, is that by people like you editing, then you are more likely to trust it than the authoritative institutions, which also have, their trust is in the toilet. And so when you have an event like this pandemic, you get people to reach for the institutions they might once have scorned. You see people singing the praises of this Dr. Anthony Fauci, who that's not a doctor any more than the guy they've got at the WHO clutching his pearls about an infodemic. If you have enough time in the middle of your killer pandemic to talk about how misinformation is a problem and we need a vaccine against misinformation, then I'm sorry, you don't have a pandemic and you need to stop fear-mongering. Because, so you would think that, this is a dire pandemic killer situation. You would think that they would be preoccupied completely with that, the World Health Organization. Not so. Mike Ryan wants a vaccine against misinformation. He's the head of the Health Emergencies Program, so it's not like he's some backwater douchebag who has nothing better to do than think of stupid things to have programs about. And this was already in February, so supposedly this virus is killing all these people in China. And it's a bit ridiculous that we had to come up with a fake word for this infodemic. But then you look at Mike Ryan and you kind of start to get a better realization of why he's doing this. This man is in charge of the Health Emergencies Program at the World Health Organization. Look at this man. I mean, really look at him. That is not a guy you want to put in charge of the world's health. I'm sorry. That guy, I don't know what is going on there, but it's not good. So, yeah, next to the infodemic, we have this form of infodemic, which is basically, if you read the text on here, it's that the CDC is telling its medical experts and public health authorities that they too can join the cause of getting people to sign on the dotted line for that vaccine that they're not going to really have a choice of taking in this point. This will be looked at in the future as back in the day when we still had a choice of whether or not we wanted to take a vaccine. Well, we had to lie our little asses off. Now we just sneak up behind people and chloroform them, and then they wake up and their kidneys are gone, and so is their immune system. Medical experts and public health authorities can publicly, e.g. via media, state concern and alarm and predict dire outcomes. Gosh, it's almost like that Event 201 simulation where they predicted 65 million people were going to die of a coronavirus, and the fake commercials they generated to work with it looked almost exactly like the CNN reports that we were seeing come out telling us we were all going to die. I mean, it's not like they, compare notes or anything. Significant media interest and attention, duh. Framing of the flu season in terms that motivate behavior, e.g. as very severe, more severe than last or past years, deadly. Similar to the Spanish flu, perhaps. I mean, no, this article's from back in February. Nobody was paying attention back then. And now we get to the real point of the whole 9/11 comparison. When was the last time that NATO's Article 5 was triggered? oh, right, 9/11 memorial in front of NATO headquarters with like a piece of, because I can't remember if it's a piece of the plane or a piece of the building, but it's like this really, it's bizarre that they would have a piece of twisted metal as a memorial to the one time that Article 5 was invoked, fraudulently as it turns out, to justify NATO intervention in Afghanistan. You know that the Taliban offered to turn over Osama bin Laden if he was promised to receive a trial, a normal trial, but they wouldn't just turn him over for indefinite detention forever, which is logical. I mean, I'm not a big Taliban fan, but they were just obeying international law. Funny how that works. The U.S. has never been a big fan of international law, but it was, especially in the aftermath of 9/11, and especially now. Again, this is parallels upon parallels. And unfortunately, as we're seeing, this is going to end in war. And it's not just that the Atlantic Council, which is funded by some of the most vile and disgusting entities on the face of the earth, wants Trump to declare war on the coronavirus and have NATO come in. And I mean, what the fuck is NATO supposed to do with the coronavirus? I'm sorry. This is the Atlantic Council, of course. Their whole bread and butter is war, selling machines of war, just financial instruments to supply war, financing terrorists to cause more war. I mean, these people are just really the scum of the earth. They're all about censoring alt media. They're all about killing people. These are really, really shitty entities. And all right. So what other ways is it like 9/11? Because there's got to be a lot of them. Insider trading, but didn't they get caught doing all those put options in like 2001? Well, yes, little Jimmy, they got caught. But see, then they got uncaught. Everybody who was pursuing the lead suddenly decided that they had better things to do. They had to wash their hair or like comb their dog or comb their dog's hair. These things, they just come up in the schedule, and before you know it, the statute of limitations is over. So what's going to happen to this SEC guy? Well, see, Trump really wants to make the stock market boo-boo go away. And so he's going to make it all better. He's going to kiss it and make it better. He's going to kiss the SEC's ass and make it all better. If you're a Congress creature and if you're a Congress creature, you can insider trade and it's legal. So the fact that these people got caught and ended up in the media for it suggests to me that there's something more at play here, such as maybe they just decided to sacrifice these four on the altar of public rage because literally everybody was doing it. Obviously, when they were having these briefings and telling the American public that, oh, everything's fine, the economy is just great, no, don't worry, coronavirus ain't shit, and secretly selling off massive quantities of stock because they knew that it was all going to go down the toilet. So they had to have some sort of like incentive to allow that to happen, which was the large amounts of money that they're making, and now that they're going to get away with making. Maybe these other four wouldn't go along with it, or Rose came up with some fuss, or maybe they just drew the short straw. I can't imagine Dianne Feinstein not going along with the plan because she's a just inveterate scumbag. And I'm sure Inhofe is too. I don't even know the other two, but it's ridiculous. These things just keep repeating themselves, and it's like there's no originality. This is what happens when you have endless war. Nobody has. They just run out of scenarios. You can't keep reusing the same things, but they do. And then we have this is the 2020 equivalent of the anthrax letters. It's Rand Paul, who had the audacity to doubt the grand wisdom of the coronavirus stimulus bill. Then the next day he gets coronavirus. It's really funny how that works. Actually, no, it's not. It's just really predictable and disgusting, and it's exactly like the senators who opposed the Patriot Act suddenly finding anthrax in their mailboxes or in their letters. And then, whoops, they just happen to turn around and vote yes on the Patriot Act. It's almost like it was done on purpose. Yeah, I mean, when you're getting letters in the mail that have like this weird childish writing and it says, death to Israel, death to America, Allah is great. Dude, it's like, you can't, I mean, come on, you have to be really stupid. But then, I mean, the link here would be Danny Shoham, the Israeli bio-research analyst, aka bio-warfare specialist, who's one of the many links between 9/11 and coronavirus. who just happened to provide the bogus scientific paper claiming that Saddam Hussein had huge, giant stockpiles of anthrax and other biowarfare agents, and therefore he must be behind these pesky anthrax letters that seem to be coming from inside the house. Well, they were coming from Fort Detrick, Maryland, which, wait a second, isn't that where the coronavirus came from? Well, let's not be with the irresponsible speculation or YouTube is going to yank my channel, but the, Fort Detrick did get shut down a few months before this whole thing went live, and, well, a lot of samples ended up going missing or being otherwise unaccounted for or leaking out into the population, which turned out to have an outbreak of a disease very similar to the coronavirus. You know what? I'm not a coincidence theorist, and if you are, I would recommend you have that looked at seriously, because this is just too ridiculous. And the fact that Danny Shoham's been wheeled out of wherever they keep him to talk shit on China's ability to handle a level 4 biosafety facility. You know what? I think China has nuclear bombs. I think that they can deal with biowarfare. I mean, they better be able to, because the US is certainly using it on them. At any rate, so Danny Shoham is, of course, the one who came out in the Washington Examiner, this very same paper, and started speculating wildly about how the Wuhan lab is near the wet market, where it turns out that the disease didn't originate, didn't get transferred from animals, didn't any of the above. And yet people still, that word wet market, that phrase wet market, is one of these memes that is just being passed around. I think because people have this fascination with the idea of like people buying their animal and then having it killed in front of them and then all blood everywhere is abattoir like. And the thing is that, like, in most parts of China, they didn't have refrigeration until recently. So if you didn't have an animal butchered in front of you, have no idea how long that meat had been sitting there. Believe me, I've been to Nepal. I've seen that they just leave the meat on a slab and there's like flies all over it. And, you know, you're supposed to eat that. Okay, so sure. I think I'll take the live animal, please. But yeah, Rand Paul is not going to be a doubter anymore. He's going to get shamed. He's going to be held up as the example that nobody should follow. So don't be like that guy. You've seen these social distancing shaming videos where people lean out their window and yell at people for like walking too close together or talking to each other, God forbid, or, I mean, because they don't want us to compare notes. One of the big problems they had after 9/11 was that people were comparing notes. When people were saying, hey, wait a second, weren't there like 2 planes? Why did 3 buildings fall down? That's really weird, right? No, this time they're not going to make that mistake. They're going to make sure everything is done, everybody's inside, all conversations can be monitored and scuttled if needed. And whatever they're going to do out there, outside rather, they're going to do while we're all inside and we're not allowed out. I mean, shelter-in-place orders is insane. They haven't done anything like this on a grand scale. The only thing that came close was after the Boston Marathon. They kept people inside in Boston while they did their stupid manhunt. And that was sinister enough, but nationwide, this is very new. And they actually got people to clamor for this thing by scaring the shit out of them. Yeah, and of course, here you see he's being made an example of. Obviously, between this, the social shaming part, and between just the fear part, I mean, between getting the Spanish flu comparisons, all the videos that were coming out of China, I mean, yes, they also serve the purpose to demonize China by saying, oh, look how police statey they are. And then the ones that later came out of Italy, which wasn't supposed to be police statey at all, but they had a full-on lockdown. And we were supposed to be so terrified of what's going on over there that we would just meekly shelter in place. And not only would we meekly shelter in place, we would try to shame our neighbors who didn't by calling for things like shut down NYC and lock down LA. And please, sir, I don't need these freedoms anymore. Take them for safety. Well, it's like the same idiots who, in the aftermath of 9/11, voluntarily gave up their right to First and Fourth Amendment protections and said, you know, if I have nothing to hide, I have nothing to fear. Kill yourself. Seriously, if anyone genuinely believes that, after all these years of just rampant abuse of our rights as citizens and our rights as human beings, it's really appalling that anybody could still think that way. And I really don't believe anybody still does. But then I saw these lockdown NYC and shut down LA things, and they weren't all fake. I mean, some of them are actual people, and I'm sorry, I don't care how scary your virus is. There's always something worse. What's the point of surviving an epidemic if you come out and you're living in a police state? Just some food for thought. And like 9/11, there's been about 1 billion indicators that this was coming down the pike. Advanced Knowledge, CDC started hiring quarantine program managers last November. And this is, of course, from a site that cannot be named. And normally, obviously, I wouldn't indicate that they have any credibility whatsoever, but they do have screenshots, and actually the listing is still up. So yeah, this public health advisor quarantine program listed in November, a whole lot of quarantine managers do they need. This is not something they need on a regular basis. The CDC is not that hungry for people. It's just not right. So you too can get paid $93,000 a year to snitch on your fellow man, because this is, I mean, they can't just do they can't just do martial law itself, because that would require an actual physical enemy, and they can't quite frame their desire to attack Iran as Iran actually attacking us right now. But give them a few months. Trust me on that. And meanwhile, of course, like I said, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. Wait, what? People actually are claiming that we want this, that we're willing to give up our privacy as cell phone users to have Google and, well, the big tech, big brother nexus of fascism paging, pawing, sniffing through our data, our location data first, then our health data, because, of course, Google has all of the coronavirus test centers, the test center referral app. Google has it, and they make you create an account, sign in, or use your existing Google account. Obviously, if you're looking for coronavirus testing procedures, that means you suspect you have coronavirus. And if you suspect you have coronavirus and you are an inconvenient political entity, whether it's some form of dissident, activist, journalist, or just maker of noise, then the mere suspicion of coronavirus will be cause enough to detain you. Don't believe me? Department of Justice is looking for emergency powers. And what do those emergency powers entail? Oh, right, the suspension of habeas corpus. I know I've seen that somewhere before. It was about 20 years ago, maybe a little less. I seem to remember a guy with a southern accent telling us we were with him or we were with the terrorists. The terrorists, rather. But actually, the Department of Justice, do they really need those sweeping powers? And you know, the Justice Department, actually, I should go back to the other one, tried to come out like a couple days after this article was published, and put down speculation, because a lot of congressmen were freaking out. They're like, no way, Trump's not going to get to suspend habeas corpus. And so some DOJ spokeswoman was like, well, actually, it's not Trump. It's just the unaccountable, unelected, totally unanswerable to anyone judges. And then that shut everybody up. So it's totally fine if some random judge who has a hard-on for your rights gets to put you in jail until the epidemic is over, and they get to decide when the epidemic is over. But if Trump wants to do it, well, then obviously that's bad. Which, yes, it is. But it's bad if anybody does it, you fools. Do you not get this? I mean, Trump is interchangeable. This is a multimodal system. You could swap out Trump with any other equivalent part. I mean, I know the factories are not running because there's still a lockdown in China, but give them a couple weeks and they'll be back online. And then I'm sure we can get the Biden automaton up and running again, because that thing is malfunctioning something fierce. But yeah, do they need this suspension of habeas corpus? Well, they already know who they're going to arrest. This is an old article. This is about the main core database, which is about basically millions and millions of people who they have recorded they're going to clean up off the street, out of their homes in the event of national unrest, such as a pandemic. This is some really sinister stuff, and I would recommend everybody read Whitney Webb's article about the continuity of government. This is this one. And yeah, well, Newsweek, of course, Newsweek fails to mention a whole lot of things, usually the important stuff, because Newsweek is all about perpetuating the narrative. So this is a really scary article. I would say just read it yourselves, but Basically talking about how not only is this an issue with Maine Core, which has obviously grown massively in size. We've had the FBI gradually over the last year or two classifying different totally innocuous groups of Americans as terrorists. Never mind the fact that like every terrorist the FBI has arrested in the last 20 years has been in some way set up or entrapped by the FBI. Um, no, we're just all terrorists. And now they have this pre-crime agency coming along, HARPA, also the Health Advanced Research Projects Agency, which when you got one letter off from DARPA, I'm sorry, your evil is showing. It's pretty obvious. And that's the one that wants to be able to use your health data to predict whether you're going to go on a shooting spree. How could that be abused, I wonder? But this other thing, this pre-crime agency that Barr is coming along with, slightly different, equally sinister, if not more so. Well, especially when you consider that all of the tech companies that are going to be doing this predicting are likely Israeli in origin or using in some way hooked in with the Israeli intelligence apparatus. So remember, to those people, anti-Zionism is a mental disorder, because remember they've and so if you believe that murdering unarmed children and women and medics and journalists just because they happen to be on land you think should belong to you, if you think that that's wrong, you have a mental disorder according to these people. Keep that in mind the next time you think you're safe, please, because this is completely disgusting and absurd. And, you know, it's not the social compact we signed up for. This is when you should really start to worry. When the media is not excoriating Trump, that means there's war. And while he may be declaring war on coronavirus, as they're saying here, there's more than that. There's, as you may recall from the last 4 years, the only time that the media wasn't just completely trying to eviscerate Trump over some minutiae or other was when he was bombing somebody, or when he was threatening to bomb somebody, or when he was talking about bombing somebody. Somebody was getting bombed. And, well, yeah, some people are still getting bombed, but he's talking about pulling troops out of Afghanistan. And yeah, we haven't really done a whole lot of bombing of Syria. So what could possibly be the occasion for this relatively uncondemning peace? Well, oh, right. There's 2 carrier groups now headed towards Iran. See, the problem is that Trump made a deal, and I can't verify this, so you'll have to take my word for it. You can take a look at any of my other analysis and see how much stuff I've actually correctly predicted. And I think that we can safely say that Trump has made a deal that if he gets the economy back on its feet by October, so that he gets reelected, then he will give the people who help him out their war in Iran. I really don't want this to happen. I would love to be wrong about this. However, I wasn't wrong about the global pandemic. So, you know, like I said, I would like to be wrong about this because, this is really going to be bad. This is going to set off World War III. Those stupid carrier ships are going to be sitting ducks, especially when Iran and China start comparing notes about who is responsible for this coronavirus, because the coronavirus right now is just cutting a huge swath of death and destruction through Iran, which is already under hideous amounts of sanctions, facing huge shortages of medical supplies. And I mean, a lot of their government figures have gotten sick or died in a way that no other countries have. I mean, they basically unleashed coronavirus in the Parliament building is what it looks like. And can't really say that. I mean, at least China can't really say that publicly, because then they have to do something about it. Iran has said it several times. I don't know what they're going to do in response, but once these things start going off, then those carriers are going to the bottom of the sea. Thank you, China, and your hypersonic missiles. And the US is going to freak out because these things cost billions of dollars each. They're sitting ducks in this era of hypersonic warfare, but for some reason, you know, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
So it cost me billions of dollars to be president, and I am so happy I did it. Because who cares? Who cares? I'm really happy with the job we're doing, and I'm glad that this team and me are here for this horrible thing. I mean, it's a number of people have said it, and I feel it, actually. I'm a wartime president. This is a war.
What is being set in motion cannot be undone. I don't want to be alarmist here, but like the stuff I've gone over just in this video is only a very small part of what's in store. Bill Gates wants this ID 2020 program, which is real. You can look up the actual press release from last year. They rolled it out in Bangladesh. Basically, you get a vaccine with a magnetic code that can be read from remotely from a safe 6-foot social distancing away remotely that will show your vaccine status or whether or not you've been tested. Gates has been quite open about he wants this for coronavirus. He wants it now, not later, now. He's talking about this in a Reddit Ask Me anyway a few days ago. And yeah, so I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm not really particularly keen on walking around with an implant that reflects my vaccine status to the world, because you will need these things to travel. You will need these things to basically to participate in any sort of financial transaction, because they're getting rid of cash. You do know that, because cash is dirty. Cash spreads coronavirus. See, it's being used for every goddamn thing. Everything in the world is now because coronavirus. So, I mean, never let a good crisis go to waste, as they say. But this, yeah, and the Earn It Act that's going to completely destroy encryption and turn the internet into a quivering puddle of jello. Like, there's not a lot to be optimistic about right here, but I figure at least knowing what you're up against is one step in the right direction. I don't know, man. I live in Police State, New York. I was just out earlier today, and I just wanted to see like what the situation was like, if there was actually because we're supposedly on lockdown, but but essential businesses are open. So I took a ride down to where the nearest hospital is, and while there was not like a huge amount of activity over there, if you go across the street, there were people lined up around the block at the pharmacy, and I'm not really sure why they were lined up at the pharmacy, but I would be interested to hear from any other New Yorkers what you're seeing, what it's like in Manhattan. I hear the National Guard is on the prowl, because we really do need to be comparing notes now more than ever. This is really important that they don't get to do this in the dark. Just imagine like what we would have been capable of if we had our current level of connectivity in the aftermath of 9/11. They're thinking about that too, and they're shitting their pants over it. So like, don't let the coronavirus make you stupid and make you embrace the police state, because you can't unembrace the police state. It's not the two-way street. The news only gets tighter. There's no getting out of this one. Try not to be a total like appeaser. I don't know, and don't yell at your neighbors for going outside. Seriously, if you're doing that, you're a scumbag, and you deserve what happens to you. I say hello to all my new subscribers. I mean, now is the time to basically share the information in all the videos on my channel, especially the ones about this coronavirus thing, because this information is being very, very powerfully suppressed. As I'm sure you've probably even seen the numbers the view count going down on this video, because it certainly has been doing it on all the other videos that I've posted on this channel recently. So get the information out there any way you can. I don't care if you cut up bits of this video and put it in your own, take the whole video and put it on your channel, write about it, whatever you want to do, just get the information out there, because this is really important. And yeah, this is a time to put aside your temptation to fall into divide and conquer patterns. If somebody disagrees with you on some issue, but they're on the same page with you on this, work with them on this and deal with the other thing later. Because if we get the police state they want to give us, then we're screwed. And your petty differences over political candidate X or issue X are not going to mean a thing. So prioritize, seriously. Obviously, click like on this video, share this video, subscribe to this video, subscribe to me or on BitChute/Helen of Destroy, because YouTube probably is at some point going to get rid of this channel. So before that happens, follow me there.